Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always.
So, today we're doing something a little different.
Oh, how? So,
Well, instead of looking at a whole book or a bunch of articles, we're just focusing on one chapter.
just one. That's interesting.
Yeah, but trust me, it's a powerful one.
I'm intrigued.
It's called Deconstruct the Ego to Reconstruct the Heart.
Hmm. That title alone sparks a lot of questions.
It definitely does. And the author's story, wow, she's gone through so much.
What kind of things has she faced?
I mean, get this. When she was only 16, she got hit with meningitis, sepsis, and Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome all at once.
Oh, wow. That's incredibly serious.
Yeah. Skin grafts, muscle loss. She had to deal with a lot.
And I understand there were more challenges even after that.
Right. So on top of all that, she then had to battle ITP for 20 years.
ITP.
It's a blood disorder. And it meant she was constantly at risk of her platelets crashing.
Right.
Like every year and a half, she'd end up in the hospital.
It sounds like she's been through the ringer.
Definitely. But the amazing thing is, she didn't let all that break her. Instead, it seems like she used these experiences to fuel a deep exploration of her spirituality.
So this chapter is about more than just abstract ideas.
Oh, absolutely. It's about wrestling with these really intense life experiences and trying to find meaning, maybe even healing,
Yeah.
in a whole new way.
That's fascinating. It sounds like a very personal journey.
It is. And she starts the chapter by describing a moment that really shook her.
What happened?
Her mother passed away, and she had this incredibly vivid vision.
A vision.
Yeah, she saw her mother, radiant, wrapped in this beautiful Balinese silk. And her mother told her, "I'll still be present. My presence will continue."
Wow. That's powerful.
It is. And the author even describes seeing, like, a door ajar with brightness on the other side.
It sounds like a glimpse into another realm.
Right. And this vision wasn't just a fleeting comfort for her. It sent her on a quest. She wanted a spirituality that wasn't just theoretical, you know?
So she was looking for something that could connect her to this feeling of everlasting presence.
Exactly. Something that went beyond the physical world. And, we already mentioned the medical challenges she faced as a teenager, but then the ITP, that went on for years. Imagine living with that hanging over your head.
It must have been a constant reminder of the fragility of life.
Right. And I wonder, did these experiences push her away from traditional religion or spirituality?
That's a good question. You'd think maybe she'd be angry or feel abandoned.
Exactly. Like, where were you when all this was happening?
Well, she doesn't explicitly say that in the chapter, but she does talk about struggling with, how should I put it, the restrictions of pre-existing spiritual structures.
So maybe they just didn't feel big enough to hold all the pain and questions she had.
It's possible she was yearning for something deeper, more personal, something authentic to her own experiences.
Like maybe she was saying, okay, I've seen the edge of the abyss. I need a spirituality that can handle that.
It makes sense. And that's where this idea of deconstructing the ego comes in.
Oh, okay. So it's not about abandoning spirituality altogether.
No, it's more about stripping away the dogma, the preconceived notions, anything that might be blocking her from something truly meaningful.
All right, so she's had these intense experiences. She's wrestling with big questions. And her old way of thinking about spirituality just isn't working anymore.
Right. So the question is, where does she go from here?
Exactly. And that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
I'm ready when you are.
Let's do it.
So she's at a crossroads, searching for a new way to understand her spiritual journey.
Right. She knows something needs to shift.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because she starts to realize that all the stress she's carrying,
From all the medical stuff?
yes, and also the sense of being misaligned spiritually, she realizes it's actually impacting her ITP.
Wow. So it's like her body is saying, hey, pay attention.
Exactly. And that's when she really starts to dig into this whole idea of deconstructing the ego.
Okay. I'm curious to hear how she approaches that.
Well, there's this one quote that really sums up her yearning, and it's pretty powerful.
Go for it.
She says, "I wanted to have unwavering faith in something greater than my physical body and beyond what my egoic mind could comprehend. I wanted to feel the unconditional love and compassion guaranteed in this sacred space."
Whoa. She's reaching for something way beyond the everyday, isn't she?
Yes, and she's sensing that her ego, that sense of self, might be blocking her.
So the ego is like a barrier.
In a way, yeah. It's not that the ego is inherently bad, but sometimes it creates this illusion of separateness, like we're cut off from the source of love and connection that she's looking for.
I think we can all relate to that feeling of being disconnected sometimes.
Absolutely. And that's why this whole idea of deconstructing the ego is so important.
Okay, so to reconstruct the heart, she needs to break down those barriers first. Makes sense.
Exactly. And this is where things take a practical turn. She decides to write.
Right. Interesting.
At first, she just wants to process her medical journey, make sense of all the pain. But it quickly becomes something much deeper.
Like a form of therapy.
It's more than that, even. It evolves into a journey of self-discovery.
I love that.
And there's intention behind it. She wants to assess her life, make choices aligned with her soul, and really embrace abundance.
She's not just dwelling on the negative then. She's actively choosing to create something new.
Yes. And that takes a lot of courage, to confront those limiting beliefs, rebuild from a place of authenticity.
It's not easy to dismantle those barriers we've built up over time.
Absolutely. But it might be the key to finding that deeper connection she's seeking.
Okay, so she's rewriting her story. But how does she actually do that? What does this deprogramming look like in practice?
Well, that's what she dives into in the next part of the chapter, and it gets really specific.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about that.
So how does she go about rewriting her story? It's like she becomes this archaeologist,
Digging through the layers of her own life?
Yeah. Revisiting all these pivotal moments, decisions, beliefs. And she asks herself some tough questions, like what labels, what words, what actions, what fears and doubts am I going to let limit me?
Wow. That's getting real honest.
It is. And during this whole process, there's a moment where she has this realization. She says, I found that I was inherently more likely to be positive, optimistic, and inspired by life, likely due to my prior dances with death.
Dances with death.
Yeah, that's how she refers to those serious medical challenges she faced, like invitations to dance with death.
Powerful way to put it. She's not sugarcoating it.
No, but she's acknowledging that those experiences, those brushes with mortality, they shaped her.
They made her who she is.
Exactly. And there's this one line, she says, I love to dance. It left me needing to find meaning in the dance.
Beautiful. Like, even amidst the suffering, there's beauty and purpose to be found.
Right, and that's what drives her, this search for meaning. And she makes a conscious choice,
Right.
to ward off decisions made out of fear.
Both her own fears and fears projected by others.
Exactly. And then there's this amazing declaration. She says, I wanted love to be my upgraded operating system.
Whoa. Talk about rewriting your internal code.
Right.
Replacing fear with love.
It's incredible, right? It's like that Marianne Williamson quote. Love is what we were born with. Fear is what we've learned.
I love that quote.
And this shift in perspective, it leads her to this powerful vision for the future. She wants to shed all the excess, the overcrowded, overcontrolled, overpaced aspects of life.
Yearning for simplicity, for peace. I think a lot of us can relate to that.
For sure. And she doesn't just dream about it. She actually starts doing the work. She calls it the most critical, in-depth, comprehensive human analysis she's ever done.
So it's intense, this process.
It is. And she's honest about the challenges. Like she talks about waves of emotion hitting her like a tsunami.
Because deprogramming yourself, that's not easy.
Right. It takes courage, honesty, a willingness to face those shadows within. And as she goes deeper, she realizes something. Even with all the healing, all the achievements, something's still missing.
Oh. What is it?
She says, even with all the fragments from my life, all the teachings, I couldn't thread it together in a way that made sense, that gave it the deep, soulful meaning I needed. There was something unfulfilled, my spiritual purpose.
It's about more than just fixing what's broken.
Yeah. It's about finding that spark, that reason for being.
Like moving beyond survival into true fulfillment.
Exactly. And it leads her to this intense moment, a do or die moment, as she calls it.
What happened?
She's torn apart by conflicting forces within, mind, body, soul, all at war.
Like she's reached a breaking point.
Yeah. And in that moment of surrender, of hitting rock bottom, she has this profound realization. She says, I found it hard to discern what would satisfy my life to bring about joy, albeit knowing it would be found within. I believed that if I found joy, I would find love. And when I found love, I knew I would find you.
You. Who's you in this context?
It's open to interpretation, Could be a person, a higher power, her own true self.
All right.
But I think the point is, it all starts within. Cultivating that joy and self-love, that's the foundation for deeper connection with everything else.
Love yourself first, and everything else falls into place. Classic message, but so important.
Absolutely. And as she continues on this path, she starts noticing what she calls spiritual sound
Like
bites.
little whispers of wisdom.
Yeah. Guidance that was always there, but she wasn't ready to hear it before.
Makes sense. Sometimes we have to go through certain experiences to be open to those whispers.
And when she finally starts listening, things change. She realizes some of her choices, even the well-intentioned ones, aren't serving her anymore. There's this dissonance between her actions and her soul.
That's got to be tough to admit.
It is. She even says, it was humbling to admit that my life choices were creating dissonance. Choices that were once perfect for my heart were now out of sync. It was clear a soulful evolution was underway.
So growth means letting go, even if it's hard.
Yes. And she embraces this soulful evolution. Like conventional success doesn't satisfy her anymore. She says, everything I deemed healthy and useful in life, as a gauge of joy, success, love, it had all been fulfilled. So I was left exploring complex topics, scientific theories, things that defy the intellect.
So she's seeking something beyond the material world, beyond logic.
Exactly. And she dives into all sorts of things, spirituality, mysticism, looking for those bigger answers.
Expanding her consciousness, pushing those boundaries.
And she discovers this incredible sense of interconnectedness,
Yeah.
seeing the beauty and purpose in everything, recognizing that we're all woven together in this tapestry of life.
From ego to unity.
Yes. But even with all this knowledge, this understanding, there's still that yearning for something more.
That search for her purpose.
Right. And she realizes, it comes back to this core message, deconstructing the ego to reconstruct the heart. It's an inside job.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it begs the question, what about us? What parts of our programming are holding us back? What beliefs, what fears, what's keeping us from that deeper connection, that authentic self?
This chapter is a powerful reminder. The answers we seek, they're often within.
It's about quieting the mind, listening to those whispers of wisdom, and trusting the power of love.
We're not just physical beings, right? We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
And within each of us, there's this wellspring of wisdom, strength, love, just waiting to be uncovered.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep loving.